Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to be talking about their players, and if I think you should draft their players for your fantasy team this year. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to hit at least 1,000 subs this year, and we're almost there, guys. So please hit that subscription button. It would mean the world to me. Without further ado, guys, let's jump right into what I project the Vancouver Canucks lines to look like. So basically right now, the Vancouver Canucks lines are the hardest thing to put a finger on because Pettersson and Boeser have not yet played a preseason game. And the other lines have been Garland, JT Miller, and Podkolzin. And the third line has been Pearson, Horvat, and Hoglander for the most part. So does that mean Pettersson and Boeser get someone else on their top line? Does it mean that they scramble the other lines, put JT Miller back on the top line with Pettersson? I have no idea what it's going to end up looking like. I imagine that those two lines, Garland, Miller, Podkolzin, and Pearson, Horvat, and Hoglander end up staying together. But honestly, that's not guaranteed at all. Maybe Hoglander moves from the third line to the top line, and then someone else takes his spot next to Horvat and Pearson. That might make the most sense. So the player being drafted the earliest on the Canucks is Quinn Hughes, being drafted at 45 on average, and last year managed 41 points in 56 games, which isn't bad. But what was bad was his plus minus. Minus 24, like ouch. That was the 7th worst plus minus in the league last year. It could get better with Pettersson back, but I'm not suddenly expecting him to be a positive plus minus guy, right? He should be able to manage 60 to 65 points. But if you're in a league that values plus minus a lot, it's probably not worth drafting Quinn Hughes. In his range, there are other elite defensemen you could be drafting. Next is Elias Pettersson, being drafted just after Quinn Hughes in drafts, and he has the potential to come back this year and have a really strong season. Like, he could easily perform at a point per game pace, or even better than that this year. And I think he has really good value where he's being drafted around 46, because that's pretty late for a guy who was being drafted late first, early second round last year. Next is JT Miller, and I'm not sure what to expect exactly from Miller, because will he be playing with Pettersson? Will he be centering his own line this year? I honestly have no idea. What I know for sure is that he's not going to have a bad season. He's a really great player. His stat totals could definitely go down, though, if he doesn't end up playing power play 1. Like, for example, if they put Garland there instead. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think JT Miller's a bad pick. That there could be better picks in the range because his stats could go down just a little bit if he doesn't end up getting that top line time or that top power play time. Next is Brock Boeser, and he hasn't practiced either in preseason, just like Pettersson. He's injured, but he's expected to play the first game of the season, so no harm done there. Like I said, I expect him to play alongside Pettersson, so he should have a pretty good season. He should also get top power play time alongside Pettersson, so if he does get both those things, dude could have a pretty solid season. I have him ranked pretty high, and I don't mind drafting Brock Boeser where he's currently being drafted. Next are goaltenders Thatcher Demko and Yaroslav Halak. I'm expecting Demko to get the vast majority of the starts, somewhere between 60 to 70% of the starts, but I think Yaroslav Halak's going to get a good chunk of the starts as well. He's not just going to get the back-to-back games. He's too talented of a goaltender to only be getting those back-to-back games for Vancouver, which is good. It'll give Demko a little bit of rest, and Vancouver will still be able to win games with Halak in nets, which is exactly what they wanted. Demko is a very good goalie, being drafted relatively late. So if you still need a goalie around the 100 mark, Demko is a very solid option. And I'm not really drafting Halak unless I'm in a very deep league. But if I am, he's not the worst option in the world super late in the draft. Should get 30 to 40% of the starts in Vancouver. Next is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And he's not someone I'm super high on this year, and he's not at all on my must-draft list. If you could avoid drafting him, I probably would. But Vancouver's team is better this year. They have a lot of strong forwards. They added Garland, they added Podkolzin this year. So their second power play, which is going to be manned by OEL, might actually be kind of strong this year. And that power play might actually get more ice time than they have in the past. Last year, Vancouver's second power play didn't really get a second look. They got very little power play time. But with a stronger PP2, they might start utilizing it more, and Ekman-Larsson could have a little bit of value. Still not super high on him, though. Next is Bo Horvat, and right now, if the lines that I showed you guys come to fruition, he's going to be deployed as a third-line center this year. which I'm not so crazy about. Don't get me wrong, he's going to do okay, but Horvat always comes through and plays pretty decently. He should still get top power play time or at least second power play time. He's not going to perform badly. There's just not a whole lot of upside with him this year. If you need a center that late, I guess you can pick him, but center is not the most valuable pick, and there's probably some better options later on in the draft anyway. Next is Conor Garland, and last year had a pretty solid season, and that was with the Arizona Coyotes. So imagine what he can do on a team that actually has good offensive players. Garland's a very, very good player. He likes to shoot the puck a lot, and right now he's slated to play with JT Miller and Podkolzin, which is a pretty solid second line for Vancouver. I'm really excited to see him play. I think he's going to get a lot of power play time as well, and I think he's going to put together a really strong season. Dude's being drafted super late in drafts. You can't go wrong with that at all. Next is Nils Hoglander, and I like him, but it all depends where he ends up being deployed. If he plays third line with Pearson and Horvat, not so crazy about him. If he ends up playing top line with Pettersson and Boeser, suddenly I'm a little bit more interested. I don't think he'll be getting top power play time, but he could be a decent late round grab in deep drafts. Next is Vasily Podkolzin, and I'm not necessarily grabbing him in fantasy drafts right now. I'm not sure how he's going to do, but right now he's slated to play with JT Miller and Conor Garland, which is pretty good. So if you're in a deep league, sure, you can grab him with a late round pick. Otherwise, I'd wait and see how he looks on the ice, right? We don't really know how he's going to perform just yet for Vancouver. So if he looks really good on the ice, starts performing right away, he's someone you could pick up early on in the season. And last but not least is Tyler Myers. He's a guy that blocks a decent amount of shots, hits an okay amount, but other than that, not too useful for much. He had an okay offensive season with 21 points last year, but he's not going to replicate that this year. He's not going to get any power play time at all this year, I don't think, unless they squeeze him onto that second power play alongside OEL, which I don't necessarily see happening. So I'm staying away from Myers this year. There's just not a whole lot of value for anything for him. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I really appreciate it. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.